The call came while I was sitting in traffic, sunlight bouncing off glass and chrome in that restless, late afternoon way that makes everything look slightly unreal. I almost didn't answer. The number wasn't saved anymore, but memory doesn't need labels. Some sequences of digits imprint themselves permanently, like old addresses or childhood phone numbers. 5 years, long enough for silence to feel structural rather than temporary. Hello. A pause. Then my mother's voice unchanged in tone, as if the previous half-decade had been a minor scheduling inconvenience. We're having a family meeting. Not, how are you? Not, it's been a while. A meeting. About your new Porsche. I glanced reflexively at the car ahead of me, then at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. It was oddly fascinating how quickly language could collapse time. Her voice carried the same calibrated authority it always had, that familiar mixture of assumption and direction. I see, I said. Traffic crawled forward. You see, she repeated. Your brother is going through a difficult period. Of course he was. My brother's life had always been narrated in phases of potential briefly interrupted by unfair circumstances. Market conditions. Bad partners, timing. Never patterns. We think it's appropriate, she continued, that you contribute. Another elastic word. 5 years of distance, distilled into a financial proposition framed as collective reasoning. I didn't realize, I said carefully, that my purchases required committee review. A small exhale on the other end. Irritation, restrained but audible. This isn't about the car, it rarely is. It's about family responsibility. The traffic light changed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt less like tension and more like two incompatible realities briefly sharing the same line. 5 years earlier, there had been another conversation. Different trigger. Same structure. Expectations presented as obligations. Concern presented as instruction. That separation hadn't been explosive. No dramatic argument, no definitive rupture. Just the gradual exhaustion that comes from being positioned as both independent and perpetually available. We'll discuss the details at the meeting. My mother said. Details, numbers, presumably. I won't be attending. The words landed softly, not defensive, not confrontational, just factual. You won't, she began, then recalibrated. Sophia, this isn't optional. There it was again, that curious belief that relational proximity could be reactivated through insistence. I smiled. Not because anything was amusing, because emotional predictability has its own strange comfort. Can I ask you something? A guarded pause. What? Have you heard of my foundation? Silence, not confusion. Recognition attempting to assemble itself. What foundation? The one we established last year. Traffic finally loosened. Cars began moving with something resembling intention. It's valued at $15 million. I let the number sit between us without emphasis. No dramatic reveal, no rhetorical flourish. Just scale. That's, my mother started, then stopped. In the space where response should have emerged, something else formed instead, recalculation, perhaps, or disorientation. For medical debt relief, I added gently, community clinics, long-term care support, more silence, but now it had texture, because generosity, when redirected, carries a different psychological weight. You donated that money, she asked finally. Not accusation, not admiration, something closer to disbelief. Yes, a longer pause, to strangers. The word lingered in the air like an unintended confession. Strangers. People whose suffering had not been narratively prioritized within our family structure. I prefer, I said quietly, to think of them as people. Her voice, when it returned, lacked its earlier certainty. Your brother needs help. I'm sure he does, and you're saying you can't assist your own family, but you can fund. I didn't say I can't. The distinction mattered. I said I chose. Another silence. This one heavier. Because the real shift wasn't financial, it was positional. For years, resources within our family had moved along predictable emotional hierarchies. Support flowed toward perceived fragility, toward familiar narratives of potential and hardship. My independence had always been treated as both evidence of strength and justification for extraction. The foundation disrupted that equation, not by withholding, by reallocating meaning. My mother's voice softened slightly, though the effort felt unfamiliar. Family should come first. She hesitated. In consideration, a safer word. Less measurable. I did consider, I said deeply. Extensively, quietly. What I didn't explain, what I suspected she might never fully understand, was that distance had not erased attachment, it had only clarified boundaries. Generosity without autonomy is rarely sustainable, and autonomy without friction is rarely real. So that's it, she asked. 5 years condensed into a single question. No, I said calmly. It's simply different now. We ended the call without resolution. No reconciliation. No collapse. Only a subtle, irreversible adjustment in gravitational pull. Outside the car window, the city moved with indifferent continuity. Pedestrians crossing streets, conversations unfolding, lives intersecting without awareness of private recalibrations happening inside vehicles. What lingered wasn't satisfaction. It was the quiet recognition that generosity can alter relationships as profoundly as refusal. Sometimes more.